am excited to have our next guest on. Joffrey McClung is an author, a teacher. She's a filmmaker. She's been in theater, and she is now a personal growth author with two books that are available. One is called The Heart of the Matter, and the other is How Learning to Say Goodbye Taught Me How to Live. Please welcome to the bright side, Joffrey McClung. Hello, Joffrey.
Hey, Ben. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Am I saying that correct, Joffrey?
Oh, you said it perfectly.
Okay, good. So you, first of all, before I get into what your topic is here, how did you go from theater to self-development and personal growth?
Well, I was in theater, and then I went into television production, and I've always done spiritual growth and read every book possible on it. And then when my mother got sick and died, I basically came out of the spiritual closet because I needed to do something creative, and I was had moved to Texas to take care of her. So suddenly I opened a spiritual door and started talking about what I've been doing for 30 years.
I love it. Give me the one book that made the biggest impact on you, spiritual book that had the biggest impact on you. Is there one?
Oh gosh, I've read over 250 books.
There's no one that jumps out as being that changed your life dramatically. No,
well, I don't mean to.
Yeah.
No, that's all right. I would have to say it was either Seth Speaks, which is very metaphysical.
Yeah, I read it.
But it opened me. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. That
I know exactly.
The idea that you create your own reality. That really kind of opened my whole.
That was one of the first books I read. Also, by the way, Seth Speaks. It is a bit heady, but it was very, very powerful. So, all right. So, we're going to have fun talking then. We got a lot in common here, it sounds like. So, self-love is a very intriguing topic, an intriguing phrase to me. What does that exactly mean? Isn't love kind of a vague term, and doesn't that make self-love really hard to explain or hard to teach?
Well, I think a lot of people think self-love is about self-esteem or building up your sense of who you are. But really the way I describe it is that self-love is the knowing in your heart, because your personality can have walls all around your heart, but knowing in your heart that you are lovable, loving, and loved. Now, what I mean by lovable, loving, and loved, Ben, is lovable means you know you are worthy of love in a universe's eyes. Nobody on the planet may love you. You may be alone on top of a mountain, but in the universe's eyes, you are worthy of love. And then loving means that expressing that loving heart, you do it good enough. A lot of us walk around thinking we're not doing it good enough. But when you express that loving heart, now we have walls around it, but when you express that loving heart, it's good enough. And then the third component is you're loved. It means that you exist, therefore you matter, and you are valued by the universe. Not for what you do, not for what you will do, but because you are you. When you have those three components, then you are building in self-love.
I love that. Now, what is the relationship between self-love and Christ or Christianity, or what you hear when you read about love in the New Testament?
Well, I think the New Testament, I was raised in that, so I do understand the idea of unconditional love, which I think Jesus was talking about in the New Testament. Unconditional love, forgiveness, grace, all of those are part of self-love. You have to practice grace with yourself. You have to figure out what does unconditional love feel like to you. So I think the New Testament has a lot of good things. I think it's been misinterpreted, but I do think it has a lot of good things in there.
Is there a way to relate self-love, to be a more traditional religious person and still have self-love and still focus on self-love as an important aspect of your spirituality and be a traditional Christian person or traditional Jewish person or Muslim person?
I mean, I've talked to a lot of people who have different religions. I lived in New York for over 30 years, so I knew a lot of people of different religions. And I stay away from what their beliefs are in their religion and talk about the self-love, the unconditional love that I think all religions talk about, and how to practice that on yourself. So I think you can do self-love. Now, if your religion's saying you're evil and you're going to hell and burn, then we have to talk a little bit about that. Maybe you're okay. But other than that, I do believe you can have a religious viewpoint and have self-love.
It seems like that religion kind of takes you away from self-love or redirects your attention away from loving self and towards loving something else.
Well, I think it's been misinterpreted, like I said about the New Testament. I think it's been grossly misinterpreted. I think the crux of the New Testament was unconditional love, and you are forgiven or loved because of who you are. I do think religions tend to make it follow us, do what we say, do it our way, or else you will go wherever we say you're going to go. That is an issue. But that's something you can work on your own because, like I say, you're going to start asking yourself questions. Why do I believe what I believe? That may help you kind of reconstruct your religion.
Okay, now, when you and I were going to talk originally, we were going to talk pre-Father's Day because you have some interesting things to say about a gender difference when it comes to self-love. Talk a little bit about men and self-love, why men need more self-love and what men can do about why it's an issue for men and what men can do about it.
Well, I think there is a difference. I do think we all need it, both men and women, and I think in general we all need the same things. But I think the difference between men and women is women tend to be much more open to hearing conversations about the heart, how the heart works, what is self-love, all that sort of information, while men tend to go from the head, go from the brain. Now, when I talk about self-love, I connect the brain and the heart together. They need to be in sync. But men tend to see self-esteem as their self-love. Well, self-esteem can go up or down depending on what you're receiving from the outside world. Self-love does not matter what you're receiving from the outside world. It rests within your heart, and you can move through the world knowing no matter what somebody's saying to you, you have self-love.
Yeah, self-esteem and self-love are different things, but they get collapsed sometimes. They get confused sometimes.
I think definitely.
And one comes from the outside, one comes from the inside.
That's the whole point. And self-love is about coming from the inside.
So what are a couple things men can do, specifically as a guy? I'm curious, what can men do to add more self-love to their daily lives?
Well, one of the things I talk about is self-gratitude. I say that both for men and women, but I think men can definitely use it. Now, when I say self-gratitude, it's not like say I did that job great. It's about taking your day, looking at it, and being grateful for who you are. Perhaps you gave some money to somebody on the street. That's being practicing self-gratitude for your generosity. You want to practice generosity. Perhaps you made somebody laugh at work. You want to be self-gratitude for your sense of humor. You find things within yourself versus what you're doing in your job or how much money you're making. You look for things you're doing that bring you self-gratitude for how you are and who you are. That's one of the big things I think I talk about a lot.
All right, so you got 2 books now. Or is it just 2, or do you have more? I got The Heart of the Matter and Finding Your Way Back to Self-Love.
And I'm finishing up my 3rd book, which is my personal story of how I found self-love.
Okay, so we're going to take a commercial break and talk about the books. I'm Pharmacist Ben. We're talking to Joffrey McClung, author, teacher, and self-love teacher, self-love expert. You're listening to The Bright Side. We'll be back right after this. Don't go away. Is there a difference between self-love and self-respect, or is it just semantics?
Well, I think self-respect is a part of self-love, but self-love covers a lot more things. Like I said, self-gratitude, self-appreciation, self-respect, self-trust. There's a lot of angles of self-love, but self-respect is definitely part of self-love.
Okay, so let's talk here about your books. I want to talk about The Heart of the Matter, but before we get to that, your memoir, your spiritual memoir, as you call it, is How Learning to Say Goodbye Taught Me How to Live. What does that mean? Saying goodbye is I'm really fascinated with the concept of endings, ending relationships, ending jobs, ending experiences. Tell us about saying goodbye and why that's so important to understand.
Well, that came out of a period that I had said goodbye to New York. I had said goodbye to my job. I was suddenly in Texas. My mother was dying or dead at that point. My best friend was in the process of dying. Saying goodbye was in every area of my life. And the book is written following my best friend and our journey together of doing our inner work as she was battling stage 4 breast cancer. So it was really kind of the cliff notes of how to stay awake when you're in the midst of loss.
Love that. Staying awake when you're in the midst of loss, like not running away from it. And this time, it seems like that's what we're experiencing now collectively is a kind of sense of loss. Do you think?
Oh, I think definitely. I think we're experiencing a sense of loss, but I do think good things are going to come out of it, frankly.
Yeah? Like what?
I think empathy. I think compassion. I think kindness, all of these energies that we put on the back burner for so many decades, frankly, are going to start to be bounced up and be much more important to our lives. Again, it's a struggle, and there's always conflict, but I think out of the conflict, we will be much more awake, much more aware of our empathy and our compassion, which makes a better world, frankly.
Do you think it's a kind of birth?
Oh, I think it's definitely a leap. I call it a leap. I think we take leaps in our life that push you into a new level of understanding. And I think this is definitely a period of leaping.
Very nice. So, The Heart of the Matter, workbook and guide to finding your way back to self-love. Talk to us about that.
That is literally a workbook and guide. It's literally everything I did to find my way back to self-love. It has the discussions that I talk about in each chapter. It has questions. It's so important to ask yourself questions. Why do I believe what I believe, and why do I feel what I feel? And you have to be honest with yourself, which alone takes some time. And then go ahead.
I was going to say, like inquiry on why you are a certain way. That's what you're talking about?
Yeah, why you are, but why do you believe? Like, I mean, I was raised in a certain religion, certain beliefs, and I started asking, why do I believe that? And I began to expand it. I began to open it up to make it more fuller versus keeping it, straightforward in the box that was given to me. We're all raised from our parents and our teachers and our friends from when we're little to believe certain things about the world, and then we fit into the world. Well, some of those things were just passed on to them from their parents. That doesn't make them necessarily true for you.
So, in other words, you have to examine what you're doing and examine your beliefs. And so many of them, as you say, are preconceived. But through inquiry and examination, you can deconstruct them, change them. You get some control over them, correct?
Exactly. You get to choose what you believe, guys. If you can change some of your beliefs, you can change your life. But you got to change your beliefs. Your beliefs are creating your life.
Do you have a meditation practice?
Oh, yes. And there's meditations within the book. In each chapter, there's some huge meditations in each book. And these are meditations that I did. They're not all that I did. I'd meditated every night. But they are some of the ones that worked for me. And I again say in the book, use it to start off and then allow your imagination to take you where you need to go. Really, my imagination took me where I needed to go.
So there's so many ways you can define meditation. A lot of times people will ask me what it is, and I'm always it always comes out differently when I try to explain it. So in your words, and as you see it, what is meditation?
Meditation is simply focusing your attention. That's what I call meditation. You can lay down, you can sit up. I used to do it in a hot tub after I get home from work or the gym. I'd lay in the hot tub, I'd put music on. Music works really well for meditation. And I'd put music on and I would go into meditation. It's literally focusing your attention.
So it doesn't matter what you focus your attention on?
Well, I think it does matter. If you're going in to do something important, you'll notice your mind will tend to want to take you away from it. My mind used to decorate my house, and I say, okay, I just spent 10 minutes decorating my house again. What am I trying to avoid? So you pay attention to where your mind's taking you, because your mind will take you away from the meditation. That's a good clue to understand how your ego works.
Yeah, there's something about the mind that just doesn't want you to sit still. Blaise Pascal was a physicist, was a mathematician and a philosopher in the 17th or 16th century, and he said all of man's problems could be reduced to not wanting to sit in a room alone by himself. And it seems, and that was the 1600s, and it's true it's true today as well. What is it about the mind that won't let us sit still?
Well, I think we think we're our mind is in charge of us, and we don't realize we are actually in charge of our mind. People say, I have all these negative thoughts. You can actually change your negative thoughts, but you have to be willing to do the work. A lot of people don't want to do the work, frankly. And you just said something about nobody wants to be alone in the room. That's the other difference between men and women. Women do like to be alone at times. Men tend to not like to be alone. That is a huge difference. And I think doing spiritual work, doing metaphysical work, doing your meditations will help men to understand it's okay to be alone, and it's okay to hear your own thoughts.
It depends on what those thoughts are. There's some people that have some pretty horrible thoughts. And actually, you know what? I have to say, sometimes I find my mind taking myself off into horrible thoughts. How do you get around that? And along the same vein, you said something about we have control over our minds. Most of us think we are our minds. Who is this we that's separate from our minds that can control the mind?
Well, there's two others. There's the ego who's sitting there in the body, and I call it the ego. You can call it whatever word you want, frankly. But it's the ego, and you think you are your mind. And you forget your heart is part of your whole physical, really your whole makeup of your body is part of your heart. But your mind, we think our mind is in charge of us, but we've never been trained how to work with our mind. Like we've never been trained how to work with our emotions. Because our parents weren't trained, so they passed it on to us, and we pass it on to our kids. You can train your mind. You can if you get look, I used to get negative thoughts too. This is how it began to do my spiritual work to begin with. But if you can train your mind to say, okay, why am I having this negative thought? What happened in my life that brought this negative thought up? What triggered me? If you start to ask yourself questions, what triggered me to have this negative thought? You begin to see how your mind works, and you begin to change those beliefs. And I don't have those negative beliefs anymore, Ben, frankly, but it took me a while to get there.
So where does, when you talk about negative beliefs, and you talk about how the mind kind of thinks it's in charge, or the ego, if you will, thinks it's in charge, where does fear fit into the equation?
Well, fear is part of our makeup. We do need fear to not run off a cliff. We need to be afraid of going to the edge so we don't fall off the cliff. Fear is necessary to live in a physical world, but we take it to the extent where we fear everything. I think it happens from when you're a little kid. Things happen and you misconstrue what's happening as your own fault. So you create these negative beliefs that I've got to be careful not to do this or I'll get in trouble, whatever it may be. Fear tends to get overblown to the point that it grabs us by the heart and keeps us prisoner. Fear is something we have to look at. We have to go to our heart work. I really stress the emotional work in this work a lot. We tend to not work with emotions. You tend to think, I'll change my mind. You got to change your heart too. If you go and work with your emotions, you begin to realize fear is arisen out of that you're not good enough, you're not lovable enough, and you're all alone in this world. When you deal with that area, you'll be able to conquer a lot of your own fears.
How can you, we got about a minute here, how can you apply what you just said to the fear that seems to be saturating the public mind or the public domain in the last few months, the fear of infection, if you will? How would you take what you just said, the wisdom of dealing with fear in a general sense, and apply it to the specific kind of fear that we're dealing with now as a whole, as a collective?
Well, I would say as a collective, there is a pandemic. That is a word we have to use. It is a pandemic. It is part of being physical in this world that there are certain diseases around. I think it's to realize that I can do something about that. I can wear a mask. I can do, stay 6 feet apart from people. There are things that you can do during the pandemic to be safe, and realize that we're going to get through this. It's just going to take time, and we're going to get out of it, frankly.
And you're positive. You're hopeful. You see good things coming out of all this.
Oh, I think this is a good thing. I think it's a good thing. I really do. I think we're going to have more compassion, more empathy, and more kindness, and hopefully a whole lot more self-love.
Thank you so much, Joffrey. How do people get a hold of you? Do you do one-on-ones, by the way? One-on-one sessions?
Yeah, I sure do. You can go to my website. The easiest way to go to my website is it's allaboutselflove.com. ITS allaboutselflove.com. Take you to my website.
Awesome. Joffrey, thank you so much. God bless you. Good luck with everything. Joffrey McClung. Thank you. That was Joffrey McClung, author, teacher. Her book's The Heart of the Matter, a workbook and guide to finding your way back to self-love. Second book, How Learning to Say Goodbye Taught Me How to Live. And her website is Joffrey McClung, JoffreyMcClung.com. Also, HowIFoundSelfLove.com. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for listening, friends. I am Pharmacist Ben. Have yourselves a wonderful, beautiful, awesome, spectacular day. We'll talk to you later, folks. Bye for now.